Burning Man is supposed to be a place of freedom, art, music, and unity in the desert. But in 2017, that dream turned into a nightmare. A man was found dead in the middle of the festival, and to this day, no one knows exactly what happened. Was it an accident? Was it foul play? Or was it something far more disturbing, hidden beneath the dust? Stay with me, because once you hear the chilling details of this unsolved mystery, you'll never look at festivals the same way again. Picture this, a vast, empty desert in northern Nevada. Nothing but cracked earth, dust storms, and silence. And then, once a year, it transforms. From nothing, a city rises. A city built not of concrete and steel, but of art, imagination, and fire. This is Burning Man. Tens of thousands of people flood into Black Rock City, each bringing their own creativity. By day, the sun blazes down on a surreal landscape filled with neon structures, moving sculptures, and bikes decorated with lights. By night, the desert glows with fire-breathing dragons, glowing pyramids, and music that never stops. Burning Man isn't a festival in the traditional sense. There are no vendors, no sponsors, no advertisements. Instead, it's built on 10 guiding principles: radical self-expression, communal effort, and leaving no trace. You give, you build, you share. Everything is temporary. Everything is meant to burn. And at the very center of it all stands the symbol that defines the experience. A massive wooden figure known simply as the Man. On the festival's penultimate night, that figure is set ablaze, lighting up the desert sky as thousands cheer. For many, it's a moment of release, a chance to let go of the past, to burn away fear, pain, or limitations, and to step into something new. For others, it's simply the greatest party on earth. But in 2024, this celebration of life, freedom, and fire would be tainted by something darker. Among the dreamers, artists, and wanderers was Vadim Kruglov, a 37-year-old artist originally from Russia, now living in Washington state. Friends say he was a builder, a creator, someone who embodied the true spirit of Burning Man. He wasn't there just to watch, he was there to make, to construct, to give something back to the desert city. For Vadim, Burning Man wasn't an escape. It was home. It was family. It was a world where he belonged. But what no one knew was that this desert of art and freedom was about to become a crime scene. On the night of the Great Burn, while tens of thousands of people danced, celebrated, and raised their voices to the fire, Vadim vanished. Hours later, he would be found lying in the dust, in what investigators would later call a pool of blood. A place meant for radical love and expression had become the setting for a brutal death. And suddenly, the question hung heavy in the desert air. Who killed Vadim Kruglov? And how could a murder happen in the middle of Burning Man without anyone noticing? Who was Vadim Kruglov before his name became tied to tragedy? On the surface, he was just another face in the crowd of Burning Man. But those who knew him say he stood out. Vadim wasn't there for the party, or the spectacle, or the endless music. He was there for something deeper. Born in Russia, Vadim grew up in a society that often suppressed individuality. But he was never the type to blend in. As a boy, he tinkered with tools, painted in bright colors, and dreamed of building things that people could touch, climb, and experience. He wasn't satisfied with ordinary. He wanted the extraordinary. When he moved to the United States, Washington state became his new home. But Vadim never really fit into the 9-to-5 lifestyle. He wasn't chasing corporate success or social status. Instead, he poured his energy into creating. His projects blended art and engineering. Strange, beautiful installations that seemed pulled from dreams. Friends describe him as both quiet and intense. He could disappear into his work for days, but when he emerged, he had ideas that inspired everyone around him. One close friend recalled, Vadim didn't just build things, he built experiences. That's why Burning Man wasn't just a festival for him. It was the one place on earth where people like him weren't outsiders. In Black Rock City, creativity wasn't just allowed, it was celebrated. And Vadim thrived there. Each year, he contributed his skills, helping craft structures that would stand proudly in the desert before being consumed by fire. To him, that destruction wasn't sad, it was beautiful. A reminder that everything is temporary, and that even art has to let go. But behind this free-spirited exterior, was there something more? Some say Vadim carried the weight of personal struggles. Others believe he was searching for meaning, constantly chasing the next spark of inspiration. Could those inner battles have led him to dangerous situations? Or could they have made him a target? This is where speculation begins to swirl. In communities like Burning Man, where freedom reigns and rules seem suspended, people's lives can blur between dreams and danger. And this raises a question for you, the viewer. Was Vadim simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or was there something about his life, his art, his relationships, or his secrets that made him vulnerable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Vadim's death was a random act of violence, or was there something deeper behind the mask he wore to the world? Because while the desert embraced him as an artist, it would also become the stage for his final moments. And what investigators uncovered next would send shockwaves far beyond Black Rock City. Always stay alert in crowded or isolated places. Emergencies can happen without warning. Know your nearest exit routes. But behind this free-spirited exterior, was there something more? Some say Vadim carried the weight of personal struggles. Others believe he was searching for meaning, constantly chasing the next spark of inspiration. Could those inner battles have led him to dangerous situations? Or could they have made him a target? This is where speculation begins to swirl. In communities like Burning Man, people's lives can blur between dreams and danger. And this raises a question for you, the viewer. Was Vadim simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or was there something about his life, his art, his relationships, or his secrets that made him vulnerable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Vadim's death was a random act of violence, or was there something deeper behind the mask he wore to the world? Because while the desert embraced him as an artist, it would also become the stage for his final moments. And what investigators uncovered next would send shockwaves far beyond Black Rock City. This is where you need to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and stick around to the end, because you are about to discover what happens next. Drop a comment below about what you know or think of the festival. I read every single one. Mornings in Black Rock City are always strange. The desert feels hungover, drained from a night of fire, music, and dust. People stumble back to their camps, some still dancing, some collapsing into sleep. But on this morning, the air carried something different. A tension, an unease. It began with whispers. A rumor that someone had collapsed. A rumor that quickly spread across camps until it became impossible to ignore. And then, the truth. Vadim Kruglov had been found lying in the dust. Witnesses say he was discovered in a secluded stretch of playa, not far from where the fire of the man had burned the night before. He wasn't just unconscious. Reports describe him as surrounded by a pool of blood. A scene so jarring, so out of place, that people could barely comprehend what they were seeing. The desert that had been alive with fire the night before now stood silent, as word spread. Someone had died. At first, many thought it must have been an accident. After all, Burning Man is filled with risks. Exhaustion, heat, dehydration, even dangerous stunts. But those who saw the scene knew this wasn't just another tragedy of circumstance. This wasn't someone who had simply collapsed from the elements. Something had happened to Vadim. Something violent. Festival medics rushed in. Security teams cordoned off the area. But it was too late. Vadim was gone. For many burners, the shock was overwhelming. This was supposed to be a place of radical freedom, of art and self-expression, not of violence. To see death in such a raw, brutal form felt like a violation of everything Burning Man stood for. And then came the harder questions. How could this have happened in the middle of one of the largest gatherings in the world, with tens of thousands of people all around? How could Vadim's final moments go unseen, unnoticed, in a place where everyone is supposed to watch out for each other? This is where the festival shifted from celebration to fear. Black Rock City was no longer just a playground of art and fire. It was now a crime scene. And here's where I turn it to you. Do you believe someone at Burning Man knows exactly what happened to Vadim, but chose to stay silent? Or was this an act hidden so well that even thousands of witnesses missed it? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this is where speculation begins to divide the community. What investigators uncovered next would reveal just how complicated this case really was. The news spread faster than the desert winds. Vadim Kruglov was dead. And almost immediately, the rumors began. In a city built on freedom, secrecy suddenly crept in. Camps buzzed with speculation. What really happened to him? Some said it was a fight gone wrong. Others whispered about drugs or a late-night accident. And then, there were darker claims, that Vadim might have been targeted. The playa is full of strangers, but it's also full of stories. Every person you meet has a past, a secret, a mask they wear. And soon, people began asking, who had Vadim crossed paths with? One rumor suggested he'd been seen arguing with someone near the fire circle earlier that night. Another claimed he left camp with a small group and never returned. But with tens of thousands of people around, separating truth from hearsay was nearly impossible. And here's the uncomfortable reality. In an environment where radical self-reliance is the rule, some things slip through the cracks. Unlike traditional festivals, Burning Man doesn't operate with tight security checkpoints or heavy police presence. It thrives on trust, on the belief that people will take care of one another. But trust can be broken. And this is where opinions differ. Some think Burning Man's culture of openness makes it easier for crimes to be hidden, or do you believe this tragedy was simply unavoidable no matter the rules? Drop your opinion in the comments, because this question cuts right to the heart of what Burning Man is. Still, amid the rumors, one thing became clear. No one had a clear answer. Some participants claimed they saw nothing unusual. Others admitted they'd heard shouting in the distance, but dismissed it as part of the chaos. Everyone had pieces, but no one had the full puzzle. And in the absence of truth, fear began to grow. Black Rock City, usually alive with collaboration and joy, was now filled with suspicion. Was there a killer among them? Was it someone they danced with, shared food with, or even trusted? The whispers wouldn't stop, and neither would the questions. Because this wasn't just about Vadim anymore. It was about whether Burning Man itself was safe. And that's when investigators finally stepped in, trying to separate rumor from fact and silence from truth. But what they uncovered would raise even more questions than answers. Never enter dangerous scenes after a fire or accident. Let authorities handle it. Preserve evidence by keeping your distance. Avoid spreading rumors. Misinformation can endanger lives and investigations. Share only what you know is true. The desert winds had barely settled when investigators descended on the scene. For the Pershing County Sheriff's Office, this was no ordinary crime. Burning Man wasn't just a festival. It was a temporary city of 80,000 people, now holding a brutal mystery at its core. Detectives quickly sealed off the area where Vadim's body was found. But here's the challenge. By the next morning, much of Black Rock City would already be coming down. Tents folded. Stages packed up. Vehicles rolling out. Evidence could literally vanish with the sunrise. Still, investigators pressed forward. They collected soil samples darkened by blood. They looked for footprints in the dust, traces of struggle, or personal belongings. Each clue was fragile. One gust of desert wind could erase it forever. And then came the hardest part: witnesses. At Burning Man, people arrive in masks, costumes, and personas. They're strangers one moment, best friends the next, and then gone without a trace. Deputies began interviewing anyone nearby. But how do you track down someone known only as the guy in the bear mask, or the woman dancing in neon wings? This is where law enforcement faced their biggest wall. Every potential witness was already dispersing across the country, even across the world. What if the one person who saw everything was already back in Berlin, Tokyo, or Sao Paulo? And the timeline. Vadim had last been spotted dancing at multiple art installations. The pyramid, the Mayan warrior, moving through the night. Somewhere between celebration and tragedy, his path had crossed with danger. Investigators now had to reconstruct his final hours piece by piece. But here's the haunting thought. If his killer was hiding among those thousands, blending into the dust and costumes, had they already slipped away, free to vanish forever? Was this a crime of opportunity by a stranger in the crowd, or did someone follow Vadim to Burning Man with a darker plan? And if you're finding this case as gripping as we are, don't forget to hit the like button to support the channel and share this video with someone who follows true crime. Stay with us, because next we dive into the rumors, theories, and chilling possibilities that began to swirl around Black Rock City. And trust me, you don't want to miss how deep those whispers went. As investigators struggled for leads, a different kind of search unfolded across the playa. Not for evidence, but for answers. And when facts are scarce, theories multiply like wildfire. Some burners whispered that Vadim had been the victim of a robbery gone wrong. The desert at night can be both magical and dangerous. Music blaring, people distracted, shadows everywhere. Could someone have followed him into the dark, hoping for money, valuables, or even just a fight that turned deadly? Others floated a darker theory. Vadim was an adventurer, always chasing thrill and connection. Had he stumbled into the wrong camp? Was there a secret conflict brewing behind the festival's carefully crafted image of peace, love, and radical self-expression? Online, the theories spiraled further. Some insisted it was a ritualistic killing tied to the more extreme sides of Burning Man's art culture. Others believed Vadim might have been targeted by someone he knew from outside the festival, someone who had followed him to the desert with unfinished business. And then came the most chilling speculation of all. What if his killer was still there, blending into the dust, laughing by a fire, or dancing under neon lights as if nothing had happened? The truth is, no theory fully explained the brutality of what happened. But as rumors grew, so did mistrust. Camps that had once shared food and laughter now eyed each other with suspicion. The community that prided itself on openness was suddenly filled with fear. Backhand index pointing right, but what do you think? Was Vadim's death the result of a random act of violence in the chaos of the night? Or was it something premeditated, planned long before the festival even began? Share your theory in the comments. We want to hear every angle. And don't forget, if this story has you hooked, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next chapter, where we dive into the suspects, interviews, and those who became central to the investigation. Because the whispers of speculation were about to collide with real names, real faces, and chilling possibilities. When word spread across Black Rock City that a man had been found dead, the reaction was immediate and deeply divided. Burning Man prided itself on being a radical, self-sustaining society. But now that society was staring at something it wasn't built to handle, a violent crime in its heart. Some camps came together in unity, creating altars for Vadim, placing candles, artwork, and handwritten notes in the dust. To them, this tragedy was a reminder that even in chaos, humanity must choose compassion. Others grew restless, even angry. Some accused law enforcement of moving too slowly, worried that a killer could still be among them. Others feared the opposite, that police involvement would shatter the spirit of Burning Man, replacing freedom with surveillance. On the festival's message boards, the debate grew louder. Was Vadim's death a tragic accident, a crime of passion, or something darker? And in every conversation, the same tension rose. How do you protect a community that doesn't believe in walls, rules, or limits? Here's the haunting question I want to leave you with. Did Burning Man's openness, the very thing that made it magical, also make it dangerously vulnerable? Should festivals like this increase security, or would that destroy what makes them unique? But one thing was clear, while the community searched for meaning, investigators were uncovering more questions than answers. Weeks turned into months, and still, Vadim's death sat in the cold case files. No arrests. No suspects confirmed. No motive that truly fit. The unanswered questions loomed larger than the desert sky. Who was the last person to see him alive? Did Vadim willingly walk into danger? Or was he ambushed without warning? Was this a single act of violence, or part of something much bigger? And then came the rumor mill again. Some claimed evidence had been lost in the dust, crucial footprints, fibers, or traces of DNA swallowed by the desert winds. Others believed potential witnesses had slipped away too quickly, taking their secrets with them back to their hometowns. But perhaps the most chilling question was this: if someone at Burning Man got away with murder once, could it happen again? For Vadim's family, every silence from law enforcement cut deeper. They wanted closure, they wanted justice. But instead, they were left with a void. And in that void, speculation grew, leaving everyone uneasy. Did investigators miss something critical, or was this case doomed from the start because of the environment itself? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit like if you believe Vadim's story deserves more attention. Avoid spreading rumors. Misinformation can endanger lives and investigations. Share only what you know is true. If you witness something suspicious, report it promptly and clearly. Small details can make a huge difference. Verify facts before repeating them. False claims can cause real harm. As the dust settled on Burning Man 2017, the desert carried more than music and memories. It carried a shadow, the unsolved death of Vadim. His name, once spoken only among friends and family, became etched into the larger story of Burning Man. To some, he was a symbol of fragility, proof that even in a place built on unity, art, and radical love, danger could strike without warning. To others, he was a reminder that every moment of freedom also carries risk. But beyond the rumors, beyond the unanswered questions, one truth remains. Vadim was more than a mystery. He was a son, a friend, and a human being who deserved safety, something we all hope for, no matter where we go. And while his case remains unsolved, it leaves us with a question that lingers like embers in the night. How do we balance freedom with protection? How do we create spaces of joy without opening the door to tragedy? That question doesn't end here. It stretches far beyond the desert, into every concert, every gathering, every community where people come together. And maybe, just maybe, Vadim's story will serve as a spark, pushing us to stay more aware, to look out for each other, and to never forget the lives lost in the dust. His fire may be gone, but it leaves a glow that demands we pay attention. And now I want to hear from you. What lesson do you think Burning Man, and all of us, should take from Vadim's story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story gripped you, then stay with me, because in our next video, we're diving into another case, one just as haunting, where a moment of freedom turned into a chilling mystery. You won't want to miss it. So hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story is coming, and trust me, it will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. But Vadim's case isn't the only mystery that left a community shaken. Just months later, in another corner of the world, another crime was uncovered. And what investigators uncovered would leave even the most seasoned detectives speechless. Backhand index pointing right, click on the next video right here, because this is one story you won't be able to forget.